there is a difference between Spring and Spring Boot and the language itself, Java. So Spring or Spring Boot is a framework, right? And Java is the language. So if you say that do I need to prerequisite with the Spring to learn Spring Boot? Personally, I suggest, and I have asked in the group, people have said that you can learn Spring Boot without learning Spring. But if you think if you can start with Spring or Spring Boot without learning Java, that must be an issue, really, right? So it's possible to learn Spring Boot without learning Spring itself, right? And even there are few advantages of learning Spring Boot early, that you don't get into lot of complication. Lot of developers quit because they don't know how to install, they don't know how to configure, right? And that sounds so frustrating. And sometimes Spring becomes so verbose, like we have to write a lot of words just to show a small thing. So it's a like people get kind of intimidated, and they wanted to give up so early. So Spring Boot, that reduces complexity. So once you get command on Spring Boot, right, so it would be very easier to navigate. Like you will understand why Spring Boot is very popular these days. So you will get to know, like I used to prefer other languages, but once I started Java and Spring Boot, I feel like this is very good to a good to go language, right? So we have talked about Spring Boot, right? And last we have to, okay, this is so what are the other things that we are going to use in our project? Like, this is my older PPT. I'm just trying to delete that. So what are the other things that we are going to learn apart from Spring Boot? So Spring Boot basically is backend, right? So any application cannot be completed without two or three things. That is major element, what we can say that, right? So our first element that comes into picture is, right, the first element that comes into picture is a front end framework. Front end framework, a front end language. It doesn't matter, you are using HTML, CSS, whatever you are using, uh, that's completely fine. But why I'm writing front end framework is needed, just like Spring Boot makes our lot of work easier. You can ask from the experience, someone coming from the Spring, they need to set up a lot of things compared to Spring Boot. Same way in the front end framework, like we can make more beautiful UI, more functionality, just by doing less work. Why to work too hard just to achieve simple things? So first of all, we need front end framework. For in our case, that would be React JS. So just like uh, Spring Boot is framework, Spring is framework, language is Java. So in our case, React is just framework, not a language itself, right? Language we use for React is JavaScript. But you will see the syntax of HTML is more like HTML, right? So React syntax will match like HTML. So a lot of people are preferring React these days rather than going for any other framework. So React are very popular. Even it is beating Java in 2023. So a lot of people are. This is getting very popular these days. So we will prefer these framework. And let's talk about the second thing what we need, the front end framework, right? And front end, apart from front end framework, we need a back end framework. For this we are using Spring Boot. That's clear to all. And the language we use for Java. Okay, third thing, we most importantly that is needed in our program is a database. Database to store the data. So database, usually we have two types of database. MySQL for SQL based databases, and NoSQL for NoSQL databases, like those who don't follow the construct pattern of SQL language. So there are NoSQL databases. So in that, MongoDB is very popular these days, and I prefer MongoDB, though I haven't lot of experience on MongoDB, but uh, I'm willing to explore more this side. So I will also look into that, and we will use that in our project. Or if someone is comfortable with MySQL, they are free to proceed with MySQL as well. There is no such restriction. Yeah, is there a question? Okay, so basically, uh, let me come on to screen as again. So there are three things, and the one most important thing is server, right? No, 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 not a stupid question. Once you start working, you will get to know. That is very important. Like initially, I don't have idea how these two things are going to contribute, and how does how front end framework. Why don't we use front end framework both the sides? Why we need you need to use uh, what why we need a backend framework? Why not use the same language? Why not use React both the ends? Why not use JavaScript both the end? Though we have JavaScript is very versatile, we are using both the end these days. But why not React both the ends, right? Why not something both the ends, right? And why basically we need to divide our application in two parts, right? So these are the very common question that that comes into picture. Okay. So so in this first the both of the application, like both of the an application need these three four things to interact with each other, right? We will come to your question. We will cover it, right? While talking about this.
Hi, Swapnil. I have a doubt.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? Is Spring is a front end framework or it's also back end?
So Spring and Spring Boot is basically the same backend framework, right? Basically they both use in backend, right? But people has initially created a Spring, and then they realize that there are a lot of things that needs to reconfigure a lot of time. Like see, whenever I told you the server is your important part, you cannot ignore server, right? Either even if you are using it in your computer, you are calling it local host server, so you cannot ignore the server, right? Similarly, you cannot ignore the database, right? This is something that cannot be ignored if you want to create an application. Okay. So so people has find some difficulties while using Spring. So Spring is basically for the seasoned developers who wants to take full command on their application, who wants to take full control on their configuration. Like let's say I'm using we Spring Boot. Then there comes the picture, like Spring Boot. Like what about those new developers, or what about when we are coming to, let's say, when we are starting new, or when we are making a service, we want things to be started fast forward, and later we can configure it, right? Like general approach of developer or anyone is to first getting started, then we, if it need configuration, if it needs update, we do that, right? Most of the application you have seen that. So Spring Boot not does not comes as a replacement of Spring. Spring Boot comes as an addition that has lot of default configuration, lot of annotation, right? That makes things easier. Like in Java, if you have worked on Java, you make lot of getter and setter, right? Whenever you have to uh, get
Yes,
things,
yes.
set things, right? You have to do lot
Yeah.
of things like get and set. You have to write every time. Okay, let's
Yes.
say if you are working on a large scale application, there can be 100 requests, there can be 100 entities working together. So you have to write 100 times get and set, getter and setter, right? Though some IDEs are capable of generating it, but what a Spring Boot does, Spring Boot gives you a extension, or what you extension or a functionality. We call it Lombok, right? Lombok. So Lombok annotation, what we say, you don't need to write all the time getter and setter, right? You just create annotation of at the rate get, and you will get it, right? So these are the features that makes Spring Boot. Let me show, if I could show you that. So
Basically, it's
basically,
an additional to the Spring Boot. It's
yeah,
same, but it's an additional for Spring.
additional with default configuration,
Yeah.
right? Lot of configuration are embedded. Like every time when we work on the, I said what, whenever we need a application, a full stack application, right? We need these three things. So database bases all the time you need it, right? It is must that you need it, right? But in a Spring you won't get it by default any database, right? But when it comes to Spring Boot, there is a database named as Hibernate, right? It is integrated inside your Spring Boot application. You just have to install the dependency. I will show you that too, so that you will. So this is the file where all your dependency is stored, pom.xml. So all of your file, all of your dependencies, like all of things are written over here. What are the things you are using? What are the things? What are the things you have been using inside your project? And it is quite easier. Initially it's look overwhelming, uh like what are these things are written, why a lot of things are written there. But once you started working with it, you know that this dev tools means there is something installed as dev tool. Lombok I talked about, so Lombok is installed, right? So there is everything written. You just can't start application without relying on dependency. Lot of dependencies we need time to time. So in case we can check about whether we need, whether we have took Hibernate. We haven't installed Hibernate, right? So once we need a default database, like you don't wanted to set up a lot of things, right? You just wanted to get started. You wanted something like, I don't wanted to set up my database and all, and I just wanted to get started. Just let me start it. I will, once I feel like I tested my database, tested my data, and everything is going fine, and now I want to rely on databases. So you can just uh, install any dependency and you can just get started, right? So add dependency. Okay, yeah, add dependency. So once you click add dependency, if you type hibernate, you get lot of things of Hibernate. So we have to install persistent one. So you just click over there and you will get Hibernate over here, right? And you can use, there are a lot of Hibernate versions you can install. And apart from that, there is one more thing. You can just get your dependencies is from going to official website, right? You just have, you can just go to the Spring Boot, Spring Boot dependency, right? What dependency? So let me check. Spring Boot dependency, Hibernate. So basically, I use VS Code. Everything is given over there, right? But sometimes we need to go and just bring the things things from there. So this is our Spring Boot. Here it is me. I started my project with Maven. So here are the things that Maven can gives you. So we need Hibernate if we need Spring Boot starter data JPA. So it's come with Hibernate. So if we need that Hibernate, so let's say if you want 3.0.1 version, you just click it, you will get it, and you will get the code, right? This is your code. You just copy it, okay, and you just come over here into pom.xml and just paste it here, right? So now you have installed the starter data JPA or Hibernate inside your application. We will later on learn how to use Hibernate and how to get started with it. But let's talk about basic introduction today. Okay. So similarly, lot of if you wanted to work with MySQL, right? So you can install JDBC and then can check MySQL, right? And there are a lot of other version as well. You have to check as per your need, what exactly do you need, like Hikari CP and ORM and core. You have to check what exactly is your requirement, and you have to put as per, right? Just like I copied and pasted the code and dependency, you can do one way is to doing from over there, right? And another way is like, let's say if you wanted to install MongoDB, let's see, there is a MongoDB driver. One is from MongoDB and one from official Spring Boot framework. So you just go there and you just want the latest version. So just go there and just copy this dependency, right? And just paste inside your pom.xml file. Okay. So you just by doing this, you have installed MongoDB in your application, right? Can you believe this is so fast? You just have to copy and paste this and you get started, right? So you can see this is how simpler it is. Before that, if you want to connect in Java, you have to write lines of code, though you have to set up over here as well. But just by doing this, you have MongoDB in your application. You are ready to go with that. What we say, you can add dependency directly from here. If you are using Visual Studio Code, you have certain advantages. Add a dependency MongoDB. So you have to choose which MongoDB, which one do you want exactly. You have to look into that, and you can select your version, right? So you just get it there, like you have two ways to get MongoDB. One is the web method I showed you there, and one is to from uh, this version, like while doing that, right? So there are two ways. Like you can use Spring or Spring Boot, or you can use Visual Studio Code, right? From official website or from here. So, but before that, what I wanted to talk about, how do we exactly reach this screen? How do we exactly get these application, like you see a lot of things are written already. I haven't written any word, and a lot of things are written for me already. I didn't write this whole file, right? So someone has done this already for me. So a lot of things has been already written. How to get these file things, get these into your system? So there are two three ways again still that I wanted to talk about. um, And someone said they have worked on React. Can you please tell how do you create your React project? Is there someone has said that they have worked on React? Okay. So when we do React, there are two ways. One is to go to npm and install npm package, and we can just do React install, right? But similar way, Spring Boot also gives that advantage that you can just get a head start. You don't have to write all the file. You don't need to configure everything. All you have to do, you have to go to this website and download STS, Spring Tools, right? So you have to download Spring Tools and choose your Spring Boot application. Once you install that, you can do that. But personally, I used Spring Boot tools for VS Code, right? I use in VS Code, so I can guide you there. And you can download STS, Spring Boot, Spring Tool Suite. So you can download this. They have updated pretty much. And another thing that you can get, mm, Spring Boot Start. So there is a website, dedicated website, Spring Boot Initializer. I can create. I will show you that how easy it is. So you need a Maven project. You wanted to work in Java, work with Java. So choose Java. We need 3.0.2 version because this is stable. Snapshot version are basically preview version. You just put name over there, any name. I put Swapnil XA, calling this as training Spring. You can put a dash, whatever you feel like. Right. Write a description. Uh, Training project for Spring Boot. Okay. And yeah, just choose jar package, choose your Java version, and just yeah, right. One more thing, the dependency I talk about, like what are the things you need to get started with. So first of all, things you need dev tools, right? So then you use, also you will use Lombok. Just start it. Don't, no need to worry about what are things that needs to be taken plate, no needs to worry that needs to be rejected. Just think of the basic things that you might need in future, right? If you are working with that, so whatever you think, I could take it, just start, like you don't have to need later on. So basically try to add this like time leaf. This is like HTML interface for Spring Boot, right? So just take important, if you are using SQL, just data JPA, just choose important things before the hand, whatever you need. If you take JPA, it will hyphenate will be there, and you can choose this to have a database, like you can test, and you have a visual screen for that. So you can choose as two databases as well. So no need to think a lot, right? Just go there and add some dependencies. If you need cloud or anything, whatever, it's not something you must need, right? So let's take this much for now, right? And just get started. So we will click generate. Your project is generated and your file is just ready. Your project is just ready. And just go here and open this folder. Okay, no, not with this. Let me check in this folder. It is in download folder, right? It is in zip format. First extract this, extract. So just go over there, open in terminal, and just type code dot, and it will open in your Visual Studio Code. So you come on the same screen, everything, your project is just started, everything is up and running, and this much dependencies that you have taken for a start, right? So this is how you get started with a Spring Boot project. And once you are in Visual Studio Code, there are few things that needs to be set up. Once you are Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio is code is very good tool. You don't need to go on another website, you don't need to search dependencies again and again. You have a very, the Visual Studio Code is very powerful IDE that can help you to get started with your Spring project. So I will go and type Spring Boot, right? There are extension that you can install Spring Boot tools. Check from whether it is official from Microsoft or VMware. So you can install all the all the tools, right? You can just take a few extension, and once you get done with extension, now I will show how easier doing same things over here. So here, create a new Maven project, because we need a Maven project. So it's coming from Spring Boot, Spring Initializer. Create a Maven project. Just type the version, write Java, change the name, Swapnil XI, write the name of whatever you want to call it, training. Let's call it training project. Okay. You need to give everything a small, right? Let me check whether this is possible or not. Yeah, this is possible. So training project, choose jar file, choose your Java version. I'll work on 70 and choose the dependency. You have all the dependencies written over here. You can just go like this, or you can just go and pick everything one by one, right? The same thing that we have done over there. No difference. So you have to go one by one, right? And just pick what things you need, right? So few things are basic that you must have to take. Just get started with that. Once you choose all the dependencies, put enter. It will ask where you wanted to create your folder. Let's create in downloads. It is asking to open. Yes, open for me, and it will open for you, right? So you just created one more Spring project. Same way we created feedback hub project, right? Same way we have created this project. And once you get into that, go into, initially it will look like this. Go into src, go into main, go into Java, and there you can find your application. I just printed out, this is feedback app. And this won't run right now because I have to set up configure databases. But like this, you can just get started with your Boot project. So this is how you set up your project. So guys, do you want to learn get GitHub session today, or some another day, or next day? Can someone
Today.
today is fine?
Yes, yes.
So any doubt till now? Is there any question? Yeah, someone has written npx create React app. So npx is basically npm package that we use. Like you see there,